Nelson, you've been a CSO, a Chief Strategy Officer, for 12 years. Now, let's talk about that for a second, because I'm going to go on a little bit of a rambling monologue here for half a minute, and I'm going to give the floor to you. We're talking about 12 years in agency world. We're not talking about 12 years in regular corporate America. An agency world is you can get promoted in the morning and fired in the afternoon. And you have done, I'm not sure you've done everything in CSO agency world, but you've done a heck of a lot. So let's just start there. Decade plus, CSO, agency world. Let's start. What gives, right? Let's talk about. I'll hand the baton to you for a second, and let's just kick this off.
Yeah, that's a damn. When I look at it in terms of 12 years, that feels like a lot. When I was actually thinking about this the other day, when I kind of go back through my path and understand, what is it that I did that I enjoyed? I think the thing for me was I never really saw, the typical things, power, a ton of money, a ton of things. I was just like, right from the very beginning, I was always like, I just want to be really, really good at what I do. And I went after the craft. And how do I build my craft? And I did it through several means. One is I left my hometown of Toronto, which I guess was my first big courageous move. And I moved to San Francisco, completely not knowing what was going to materialize, because I knew what was driving me was I'm just curious about the world, and I want to be able to do my craft better. And I felt so honored and humble to be selected to be a TBWA at the time. And I wore it on my sleeve with a great deal of pride. So it was that driving me. And I think that's kept me going my entire career. I think I've always just been curious. I want to learn. I want to set the bar extremely high for myself. I want to do amazing work. I've always rallied around the craft. And I feel like that's kept me passionate, excited about what we all do. And it doesn't even feel like 12 years. It feels like I'm ready to keep going a little bit.
Absolutely. No, I get that. You have a lot of runway and a lot of energy and a lot of creativity still left, right? And it seems like it's compounding. Couple of questions for you. It seems like early in your career, you might have gotten a little bit blessed in the sense that, to me, when I hear you say the word craft, I also hear this interchange of the word calling. You kind of knew what you wanted to do. Is that true?
Totally.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of, and then and you also said you wanted to be good at your craft. How do you define that? Is that the feedback your clients give you? Because that could be an up and down kind of barometer, right?
Yeah, I think I just looked around and I saw mentors around me who, did it really, really well. And I just thought, how do I aspire to that? How do I deliver work that they're going to be impressed by? And then the other thing is I was constantly learning. I just became a sponge for the world around me. I read everything and I just soaked it all up. And I just took feedback from both my mentors and those around me and my clients. And I took them to heart. And I kept pushing myself to do just better work.
Did you I love where you're going with this learning, because that's a really interesting one. I'm going to go on a hunch here, but I'm sure you read some business books. I'm sure you read the classics or read the classics in your industry. I get that. But is learning a little bit more broad for you? I mean, where you get your input from in order to stay fresh?
Yeah, I feel like business books are awesome, but sometimes business books shorthand the journey, and they say, do these 5 quick fixes or follow these 5 steps, and miraculously everything is going to fall into place for you. It's funny, I never had a grand ambition from the get-go to be a CSO.
Right.
I just didn't. I just thought, I'm going to learn as much as I can. I'm going to do my work as best as I can and learn from those around me and build my work, my repertoire, my portfolio, and let the chips fall. Is the way I is the way I kind of approach things versus, oh, I have this uber ambition and I'm going to put the path of, I didn't think like that. I don't know why I didn't think like that, but it's just not the way I thought of. I just thought of, how do I do great work?
Well, you're the second guest that I've had probably in the last 4 to 6 weeks who kind of had the similar approach. And she's now a GM, a general manager at a Fortune 100 company. And she had the same approach of like, I wanted to solve really hard problems. I wanted to work on cutting edge stuff. And I wanted to be really good at what I knew or good at what I do. And then opportunity found her. And it seems like that might be the same for you. That because
totally.
you focus on the right thing.
I wanted to solve really, complex problems. I was jazzed by interesting brands that I felt incredibly passionate about, i.e. Levi's in my early years and Shy at San Francisco. I thought broadly about these problems. To your original point, I got inspiration from other places besides business books. I got inspirations from just walking around the world and observing. I got inspiration from professional athletes and how they drove to excellence. I got inspiration from actors and how they drove to excellence. And I thought, well, our industry is just like that because we create things for cultural consumption. And I aspired to that, and I looked at that, and I looked at their recipe book, and I tried to emulate it in my own, in my own kind of world that I could.
How much, I think this is such an interesting one because clients come to you and they're looking for guidance. It's a very powerful role you're in, right? I mean, you're coming to companies who are betting big bets or placing big bets on both, present and future direction and approach and perspective and value proposition. It's an interesting role because it's not only tactical. I mean, it's strategic, tactical. How much of it is relational? You're in some ways a therapist. In some ways, you're bringing your confidence into the room. Am I making sense? I mean, it's a kind of wishy-washy kind of subject, but I'm just trying to see if we can put some structure around it.
Yeah, I think one of the great things to do with clients is I always feel like clients are looking for the most authentic point of view you can bring them about the world, culture, society, their consumers, and how that fits with their brand and their future. And I feel like if you have a tremendous amount of rigor behind all that, and you present that in the most authentic, clear way, that's where it's going to be the most compelling. And you maybe, as a strategist, you shelter yourself a little bit from the noise.
Okay.
And the subterfuge around you, and the politics, and that person said this, and that person, and maybe just take that all away and just really immerse yourself in their world, their consumer, and their brand, and what they have, and what makes them special, and package that and present that in a very easy way that they can digest, but very truthful to them. That's where it becomes a little bit of magic for them. And it's not, and I agree with you, you have to have a solid relationship with your client as a strategist. Otherwise, they're just not going to believe you and trust you. But I feel like that comes through the work and the work that you bring them, and the amount of comprehensiveness that you put behind that work, and the amount of passion you put behind that work, and how authentic and real it feels for them.
But you put yourself on the front lines, though, right? I mean, when you're out there and you're pitching your ideas, you're pitching creativity, right? And so it's kind of like wearing your heart on your sleeve a little bit. Maybe I'm wrong, but like, how do you handle really hard criticism? How do you protect yourself?
It's funny in the beginning, because you're always, I guess creatives and strategists and anybody who's in a kind of a creative field, you're always selling a little piece of your soul.
Yeah.
But you have to, because I feel like if you don't pull wholeheartedly into it, you're never going to, deliver the kind of work that the world believes in, that's right for the world, or your clients believe in. Right. So I feel like you just naturally have to. I think in the beginning, I took it quite personal, but it's funny. Over time, I just learned that, I feel like I have got many ideas, and, if that one didn't work and you don't like that one, or you don't feel comfortable with that one, I've got another one for you. I learned that sometimes there's different flavors for everybody depending on the situation.
Yeah, right. There's not just one way to success, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right. Okay, gotcha.
But I always, in the beginning, particularly with clients, I went a little bit for, for lack of a better term, the extreme. Okay, really pushing you out there.
Yeah.
And then if clients are like, oh, okay, I'm like it, or they say it's too much, then I would just naturally, rope myself in. What I was most afraid of is going to a client, them saying, I'm bored. I've seen
No.
it before. I've seen it before.
Right.
We've done it before. We've done it before
Yeah.
unsuccessfully. It's not fresh. It's not original. That made me. It's too incremental. That made me more, concerned, afraid versus let me just really go for it. And then if it's not right, then we'll come in, because that's fundamentally my job. My job is not to, listen to the politics. It's to listen to the world and culture and their consumer and their brand and present forth something that captures that.
Right. Tell me about some of the harder moments you've had. Like, let's get some highs and lows. Our audience loves some good stories, right? Give me some highs and lows. Give me a couple of stories where, like, wow, we maybe a comeback story. Like, hey, we weren't sure where this campaign was going to go, and it just took off like wildfire. Do you have anything in your repertoire? To mind?
Comeback stories. I feel like early on, I feel like leaving Toronto and moving to San Francisco.
Yeah.
Early on in my career, I went through this moment of, what am I doing here? I felt a little bit, maybe imposter is the wrong word. I felt like I had left Canada, which is a smaller market, and all of a sudden I was in the US in like 2000 when a lot of things were happening, and I felt a little bit out of my league, I guess.
Okay.
And just like, I don't know if I could deliver at this level. And I was a little timid and afraid, I guess. And there were moments where, like, oh my God, I just want to run back. I just want to run back. But I felt like I just kind of dug deep. And I fell back on what I had always fallen back on, which is, I'm going to get into the work.
Yeah.
I'm going to do the work better. I'm going to do the work better than anybody to get over my self-confidence issues.
Yeah.
And little successes begets bigger successes.
Yeah. Momentum.
And I just built momentum, and there was a little bit of a snowball effect where it just kept building and building and building and building. But I feel like everybody has that moment of like, oh my God, this is just, or not, but I did. I felt I'm not good enough. I'm not going to be, I can't succeed in this arena, I guess.
Well, it was like your fight or flight moment, it sounds like, right?
Totally.
You were either going to double down and go for it, or you were going to go back to Canada, right? And with some great story. I tried.
And, mentally in my head, I was always like, oh my God, I'll be here for 2 years, then I'll go back.
Yeah.
I'll be here for another 2 years, and I'll go back. It was almost like
you needed that story.
I needed to fabricate that story in my mind to be able to just keep going, I guess, in many respects.
I know, I love that. I come from Norway originally, so I mean, obviously Canada is quite a bit bigger in population and in geographic size than Norway. But I get that feeling of like, oh wow, it's real now.
Yeah,
like I'm actually here now. It's real, and I understand that principle. It sounds like the craft and that focus on the craft has kind of been a savior for you in many ways, right? It's been your bedrock. It's been what you've gone to again and again. Is that a fair statement?
Totally. And I think, I just realized early in my life, being a gay guy in advertising, that I wasn't going to have, perceptually or not, I wasn't going to have other advantages. So I felt like my only advantage is just like, you got to be really good at what you do and have people judge you purely on your craft and what you do and make that your thing, because that in the end is going to save you. And in many instances, it does, because, people can take a lot away from you, right?
Yeah.
You can take your job, you're this, you're that, but they can't really take away your craft and your passion and these things that you've you've built on and you've grown. I mean, you take an athlete like, Serena Williams, you can't take away her, her champion, her passion,
That's right.
her ability to be an exceptional athlete, not only tennis play, an exceptional athlete, regardless of, other circumstances.
Do you think that, I'm going to call it trauma energy? I don't know if that's the correct term or not, but like that perceived perceived or real discrimination, fueled you? I mean, it sounds like you, instead of it shutting you down, you used it constructively. Was that conscious or unconscious? Maybe both.
I think maybe both. And I think it was actually more perceived than real in many instances.
Okay.
But I just felt it at the time. And it definitely fueled me because I wanted to, just perform well.
Yeah.
Perform well as, an executive in the business world and make myself proud and make those around me proud, I guess, in many instances. So no doubt, I think it like propelled me and fueled me. And those limitations were actually quite healthy for me in retrospect.
Did and maybe this question is applicable, not applicable. Did the craft also help you find yourself? You're pursuing the craft, but the craft was unlocking you in some ways. Is that making sense at all? Am I?
I mean, I never. I completely agree. I never treated my work as just a job.
Yeah, right.
For me, it became like my passion, my calling.
Yeah,
it gave me a lot of purpose in my life, a great deal of focus in my life. It gave me like roots, the community people that I was around in the advertising agencies became lifelong friends. So it gave me a lot of grounding and purpose to my life. And then when I hit New York City, which can be its own other thing.
That's the ultimate. I mean,
it's just like it's a very difficult city to navigate, and you can quickly fall off the edge and just get overwhelmed by it all. It kept me grounded and gave me purpose and focus and clarity, and I'm incredibly thankful for that. It's clearly shaped me in terms of who I am today and how I approach the world. I mean, New York kicked my butt, but I think in a really good way,
Yeah, because you didn't quit, right? I mean, like it
kind
of whipped you into a next level kind of thing, right? It kind of took you and it might not be felt good, but it was good kind of thing. Yeah.
And there were moments when like I'm kind of exhausted. I'm ready to throw in the towel, but you peel away. You reconnect with yourself, with your community, with your friends, and you come back in. It's like what professional athletes say. It's like it's not how you win, it's the recovery and how quickly you stand up and gain your confidence and move forward.
Like what's coming up for me is like authenticity. And in order to stay true to your craft, in order to keep going back to it as a source, authenticity, I'd imagine, would play a big role. I would imagine, and maybe I'm putting words, maybe I'm projecting, it would be hard for you to take on a campaign and excel at it if it's something you really didn't believe in. Or you didn't believe in. Is that true? Am I onto something?
Very, very true. Very true. And I always tried, sometimes business has limitations and puts limitations around a particular problem. I always try to present a strategy in as most authentic way as I could for the people we were expected to reach within that culture. I never tried to fake it or meld it or shape it according to the problem at hand. I always tried to present as truthful a picture as I could. And if people were like, oh, that's too much, that's too little, for me, it felt like, oh, but this is as close as I could to the most authentic case in terms of what's happening. And then if people felt uncomfortable with that, I could always reel it in. But I felt good that I was giving them the most authentic version of it.
Yeah, and that takes courage, right?
Yeah.
You were avoiding the, I get that.
Like standing up for the craft, for the people you're representing, the consumers.
Yeah.
And just standing up for the world and culture and where it's going, and how a brand fits into that. You're right. It takes a lot of courage because there's a lot of pressure to, I guess, coalesce and kind of just bring it down a bit.
Does it
and
take
make it sellable?
Yeah. Does it take humility as well, in the sense that sometimes you have to say, you know what, we're not the right organization for you guys. We're not the right fit. We're not the right partner. Is that something that ever comes into the picture where you just realize?
I think less so now, but
yeah,
clearly in my early days in TBWA, that would happen a lot.
Okay.
Where we would say, yeah, just not the right fit.
Yeah.
For us, because it's just not going to be, we're not going to be able to give you the work that you want, and it's not going to be good for us because it's not what we do, kind of a thing.
Yeah. Okay. No, I love it. I mean, I think that's such a powerful phrase. You were talking about, like, in 2 years I'm going back to Canada. In 2 years I'm going back to Canada, right? And but also having the option of saying, I'm going to put myself out there, but hey, I'm going to swing for the fences. It may. Or may
I guess it was
courageous to me.
I guess it was a safety.
Yeah.
Emotional, and a very safe emotional place. Like, I
love that.
Like, I can always go back there. Like, if things don't turn out, because
I have the same thing. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
I can't say enough, particularly to young talent right now.
Yeah.
Don't worry about, your Instagram profile, your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, that's right.
Worry about, am I doing something I truly love? Which sounds a little bit like a cliche. And am I delivering work that I look at and think, this is really amazing. Yeah. I feel really proud of this, and I would want to show it to anybody. And then what am I doing to be able, for myself, to stay relevant, curious, constantly learning, that's outside my comfort zone? Because that's the other thing. Like, for me, it's like I always try to take myself out of my comfort zone. I took myself out of my comfort zone in Toronto, and I plucked myself in California. Then I'm like, I got to take myself out of this comfort zone and throw myself into New York City. And in 2011 and 2012, I had a little bit of my own where's my career going? Because I saw the world just tilting. It was becoming, I was a classically trained brand planner where I had been at, Ogilvy, TBW, and doing these mega, tentpole, beautiful brand ads. And the world was shifting. It was becoming much more digital and data driven. I'm like, I don't know that world. What is that world? And I could have hunkered down and stayed in my world and just played in there. But I'm like, wow, I need to do a big pivot. I need to get out of this world and get into that world.
Right.
And I remember taking a job at Wunderman, which is Wunderman Thompson right now. And people said to me, why are you going there? That's a bad fit. Everybody kept saying to me, that's a bad fit for you.
Right.
And I said, no, it's not about the fit. It will be a good fit for me. It's about, I don't know that. And I feel like that's where the world is going. And so I wanted to learn that. It was hard for me in the beginning, but I took myself out of my comfort zone and I put myself in kind of a growth zone, which is kind of really what I wanted to do, which is kind of what I've always tried to do.